Stitching on the machine is done using the inside edge of the presser foot as a guide.
Hello humans, I am the master of snake style, Ophidian. I am a luchador that's been performing all over the world in the masks you see right here.
Here, the Black Taurus is on the hunt! Into the head scissor!
I also make them. I started a video series about how to make masks, because who better to teach you than a snake who not only makes them, but also performs in them for a living. Before we get back into the making, all the techniques you're about to see were self-taught under the guidance of my partner in crime, in-closet champion, my talented wife, Kate Nix. This is the way we choose to create, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's the only way. If you don't have a wife to make a mask pattern for you like I do, don't worry, I've got you covered. You can purchase a mask pattern over on my website, closetchampion.com/merch. Last, this is part 2 in a series about how to make a lucha mask. So if you're making a mask along with me, be sure to watch part 1, which covers constructing the base of the mask. In this video, part 2, we will be adding twill tape to that base. If the mask we made in video 1 is the meat, the twill tape we are adding now is the bone structure that meat will lay upon. Gross indeed. Now that we've gotten all that out the way, grab your straight pins and your Magnatac. It's time to get you masked in public. Oh yes. Like before, we start by gathering our materials. Magnatac or Fabri-Tac fabric glue, straight pins, scissors, a foam head to help shape the mask, and heavyweight cotton twill tape in 2 widths, 3/8 inch and 3/4 inch. And you'll need your constructed base too. We begin by clipping the center seam. This is to help keep the curves smooth and eliminate bumps. When you clip your seams, make sure to get very close to the stitches, but be careful not to nick them. Next, we pin open the seam allowance of our center seam. This will help keep the seam flat as we move forward, creating the structure. You could pin the crown seam open now as well, but I've found that you tend to get stabbed less if you pin the seams one at a time. Once your seam is pinned, it's time to add your twill tape. Though a foam head isn't necessary for this step, I find doing so creates a better fit on your face. First, I lay a line of glue on a section of the front seam, starting at the chin. After smoothing out the glue a bit with my finger, I wait about 60 seconds for the glue to get a bit tacky. Then, I lay the 3/8 inch twill tape along the section I just glued, doing my best to align the center of the twill tape with the seam itself. I repeat this process until I get to the back of the center seam, and then I clip the twill tape. Once the center seam is glued, I remove the pins and repeat the entire pinning and gluing process with the crown seam as well. When you start to glue the twill tape to the crown seam, make sure you don't start at the exact center of the back, but instead a little off to the side. This will help prevent the lacing panel from being too bulky, which we'll discuss in a future video. After all of your seams have their twill tape, and you've waited for your glue to dry, it's time to start sewing. This may seem counterintuitive, but the easiest way to do this is to keep your mask inside out and stick the head of your machine inside the mask itself. You can see on the inset clip here that I'm lining up the seam so that it's in the middle of the right side of the presser foot. You want your stitching to be 1/8 of an inch away from the center seam. As I sew, I'm using my hands to press the fabric away from the seam so everything stays as tight, smooth, and clean as possible. Once I have stitched one side of the center seam, I sew across the seam in the back and do the same for the other side of the seam. You repeat this process for the crown seam. This is a bit more difficult because the seam has a steep curve. You'll need to go a little slower, pulling the seam straight in small sections as you go. Once your first round of twill tape is stitched in place, it's time to tackle the neckband. For this, you'll need that 3/4 inch twill tape, cut to a few inches longer than the neck of the mask. Fold the twill tape in half and pin it to the center front of the neck, lining up the middle of the twill tape with the cut edge of the neck. Most twill tape is woven, so you can see the center clearly by paying attention to the pattern of the weave. Ours has a chevron pattern, so I align the center point of the chevrons with the edge of the neck. After the center front is pinned, I lay a line of glue on one side of the twill tape, wait for it to get tacky, and carefully lay down the mask, continuing to line up the center of the tape with the cut edge as I go. I then repeat this process with the other side. Once your glue is dry, it's back to the machine. When you sew this first line of stitching on the neck, you want to get as close as possible to the edge of the twill tape. We give you a closer look on the inset clip provided. After your neck tape is securely stitched, flip it over to the inside of the mask and pin it down, starting in the center front. This is the home stretch. You're almost done with the internal structure. Once your neck tape is pinned again, it's back to the sewing machine. First, I top stitch the bottom edge of the neck, about 1/8 of an inch away from the folded edge. Then, I switch out my bobbin to make sure it matches the mask, and stitch down the top edge of the neck tape on the inside of the mask. Your base is finally complete. All you need now are some eye holes, a lacing panel, a mouth hole, maybe some horns, or snakes, in my case. Okay, that's not that close to being done, but you've definitely made a thing that can fit on a head, and that, my friend, is no small feat. And that's it, folks. That was part 2, adding structure. If you've got questions about the mask you're working on that you'd like to ask me, I've got answers for you over on my Patreon, over at patreon.com/closetchampion. You can join for as little as $2 a month, and you can ask myself or Kate whatever you'd like. Be sure to follow me across all social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, at Ophidian Cobra, and show me the mask you guys have been working on. If you found this video helpful, let me know in the comments below. Be sure to like the video, subscribe, and also click that little notification bell so that you get told when video 3 drops, where we talk about adding the back panel and the vinyl faceplates to the mask we've been making. Thanks for watching. Goodbye, humans. Real soggy meat that mask is. If you don't have a wife for yourself, you can head over to closetchampion.com/merch and buy one for yourself. A wife masked in public. Oh, yes.